I know,
Today's video
you
is
saw
sponsored
the
by
subject of
Squarespace.
today's video and immediately attempted to sing a song that you can't hit the notes to. And all I have to say to that is, thank you for making this the best day of my life. So, Queen Dido, or Alyssa, or Alicia, which is her Phoenician name, was the legendary queen of Tyre. Now, the differences between her name, we are told, comes from the Libyans, who called Alyssa Dido, because Dido meant wanderer, which is very befitting. But we'll just call her Dido for now to make it easier. So Dido was married to her uncle Sychaeus, who was the priest of Hercules, which was the highest office in the state next to that of the king. Now, Dido's life starts quite tragically because her husband is murdered, either indirectly or directly by her evil king brother, Pygmalion. Obviously, the story of Pygmalion and Galatea we know from Ovid's Metamorphoses, but Pygmalion as the evil king we know primarily most famously through the Aeneid, although there are other sources of it. So why did Pygmalion kill Sychaeus? Well, Sychaeus was killed for his treasure, and the evil Pygmalion never found it. Instead, the ghost of Sychaeus leads his wife, Dido, to the treasure's location in her dream, and he tells her to take it and flee the country. So she does. That is how Dido found out that her husband had been murdered, is by seeing him as a ghost in her dream. I know, incredibly Hamlet. So Dido keeps a low profile and plans to flee the country. She first manages to secure the support of the servants who wait on her, and then alongside some other noble Tyrians who are quite unhappy with Pygmalion because, as I said, he's an evil king, people don't particularly like his rule, and together they all flee. Now, of course, upon hearing of her departure, Pygmalion, according to Virgil, prepares to pursue her, but he's prevented not only by his own mother, who entreats him not to pursue her, but also from the threat of the gods. They are more scary than Mummy Dearest. So Dido flees safely, and she first lands on Cyprus, where she actually increases the number of her people thanks to the priest of Jupiter, who joins them with his wife and children, because she promises him that he and all of his descendants will be the high priests of the new colony. Additionally, under the name of this high priest, Astarte, they also prostitute 80 maidens to provide the Tyrians with wives. So this is how the colony is going to breed and prosper. So colonizers prostitute women from another country and take them on. Who bets that this is the next classical retelling? The 80 Maidens of Cyprus. Please, we need more retellings. I think there's a gap in the market, and the publishing industry is dangerously overlooked. But before we get into the story of Dido, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. So whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy for you to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place and all on your terms. If you're new to building websites, you don't have to worry. You can design a gorgeous, unique and professional looking website tailored to your brand, thanks to Squarespace Blueprint. And with Squarespace's integrated and optimized SEO tools, you can get your new website launched and discovered quickly. And you don't need to know anything about coding, thank God, all thanks to Squarespace's next generation website editor called Fluid Engine, which lets you just drag and drop your content where you want it on desktop or mobile. And if you're a freelance creative wanting to launch your own courses, then you can do it all on Squarespace in one space. You can upload your videos, place them behind a paywall, and then set the paywall structure so it could be a subscription service, a one-time payment, whatever works for your brand. So if you want to expand your business today or just build a beautiful blogging website, head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/lady of the library to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Anyway, from Cyprus, they cross the Mediterranean to Libya, and then she moves up a little north, and there she founds Carthage. And Carthage is based in modern-day Tunisia. At first, when they arrive at Libya, they are helped or aided by a Phoenician colony called of Utica, and also the local Libyan people led by King Erebus. That name's important, we'll come back to him at the end of the story. The locals rented them some land in exchange for goods. However, there was one condition. The Libyans told them that they could have an area of land, but only that which was covered by the size of an ox hide. So the founding myth of Carthage thus demonstrates Dido's cleverness, as Dido agrees to this ridiculous request and then cuts the hide up into teeny tiny strips and then lays them out in a semicircle strategically around a hill with the sea on the other side. And this bull's hide territory becomes Carthage, and the hill becomes known as the Baiasa Hill after the Greek word for ox hide. So the earliest surviving mention of the founding myth of Carthage appears in the works of Timaeus of Theomira, a Greek historian, circa around 350 to 260 BCE. His works did not survive, but we have references of said work. And according to his account, from other accounts that tell of his work, Carthage was founded between 814 to 813 BCE. We also hear of Alyssa, i.e. Dido, in Josephus's work. Josephus, who is a 1st century historian, who quotes a list of 19th to 9th century Tyrian kings. And his list is actually not his own original list, it's actually a documentation of a list by Menandros of Ephesus. I know, it's very confusing. Basically, everyone's citing everyone else, and in that list, he mentions Alyssa as the sister of the king of Pygmalion. Though the most famous version we have of Dido, i.e. Alyssa, i.e. Dido, is that of Virgil's Aeneid of the 1st century BCE. In this, Dido is the daughter of Belus, the king of Tyre, though in other accounts, this king is also called King Mutto and King Agenor. In Virgil's Aeneid, the protagonist Aeneas meets Dido on his way back from Troy to Lavinium. And he's shocked when he sees the city of Carthage in what he would have expected to be pure desert. No one would expect this magnificent walled city with these gorgeous looming towers, city gates, paved streets, and even the foundation of a theatre being laid out. Now, the Tyrians were naturally quite hostile, wary of anyone new, and that included Aeneas and the Trojan refugees. So Jupiter sent Mercury down to Carthage to prepare Queen Dido and her subjects' minds and hearts to receive them peacefully. So Dido meets Aeneas for the first time as she arrives at the Temple of Juno, which is situated in this gorgeous grove in the centre of the city. And most poignantly about the scene, for both Aeneas and the reader, the site is adorned with frescoes of the Trojan War, which Aeneas is obviously just coming back from. And the two meet in this kind of symbolic Trojan War peacetime. As they meet for the first time, Aeneas asks Dido if they can restore their ships on the Carthaginian shore, and Dido, because she's been touched by Mercury, agrees and generously accommodates all of them. Dido then leads Aeneas into her palace where she's prepared this banquet for him. And Aeneas is in awe of this palace because, as you can imagine, it is adorned with her ex-husband's treasures. You can see these purple hangings, the serviceware is solid silver, there are golden vessels everywhere. And as you can imagine, as a guest showing up empty-handed to a banquet, Aeneas felt a little bit short, because it's always awkward when you go to a dinner party and you haven't brought any form of gift. So he sent his officers to the ships to fetch a robe of golden brocade and, get this, the veil of Helena of Troy, one which she had gotten from her mother, Leda. Aeneas then lays it on thick with the treasures that they saved/looted from Troy, from all these pearls to precious stones, jewellery, and even a sceptre from a Trojan princess. He also orders something very specific. He orders one of his officers to return with his son, Ascanius. Now, this is where Venus enters the picture. Venus, who is Aeneas' mother, suspected Juno of being behind Dido's hospitality, and she was concerned that Juno was attempting to hinder Aeneas' journey and fulfill his prophecy of laying the foundations for what would eventually become Rome. So she plays dirty back. Venus asked for her son, Cupid, to impersonate Aeneas' son, Ascanius, for the night, bearing gifts for Dido from his father. This was her way of making Dido fall in love with Aeneas by injecting passion into these gifts. Aeneas' son gloriously enters the scene, obviously because it's not actually his son, he's actually a god, and he manages to inject Dido with love and passion for Aeneas, whilst everyone is in awe of this gorgeous man. Meanwhile, Ascanius is actually fast asleep elsewhere. Now you're probably wondering, why would Venus do something that seemingly goes against her interest? Well, because she needed a failsafe. If Dido was in love with Aeneas, she would never betray him, and that was important to win this fight. So, over the next few days, Aeneas tells Dido all the tales from Troy, all the gruesome fight details, and the deception story of the wooden horse. Now, as you can imagine, Aeneas is not complimentary of his enemies, the Achaeans, except for one of them, Palamedes, the Greek prince who served in the Trojan War, but who was stoned to death by the Greeks after he was found to have concealed a letter and money which was purportedly from King Priam, the king of Troy. Odysseus, Agamemnon and Diomedes are the ones who stormed into his tent and found this evidence, accused him of treason and had him stoned to death. Naturally, those men have a special place in Aeneas' rant to Dido. He calls Diomedes godless and Odysseus this criminal master craftsman. So the more Aeneas paints himself as this scorned soldier, the more Dido falls in love with him. She also felt for the Trojans' plight. They had to flee their home, in the same way she had had to flee hers many years before. And they were also struggling to find any hospitality, and she had the same experience when she was fleeing. So Dido spent all day, every day with Aeneas, taking him around the city and asking for him to tell her more tales of the war. And they were quite a cute couple. Juno could see that. So Juno encouraged him to stay in Carthage. She didn't want him to reach Italy anyway, so she tried to push them further together. One day, when they are out on a hunt, Juno sends down a rainstorm, and the two of them run for shelter in a cave. And that was where the two of them, completely overcome with passion, a bit like a scene from Pride and Prejudice, dripping wet, with their clothes becoming quite see-through, make love. A scene which is referred to as Dido's cave marriage. But sadly, this is a tale as old as time. A woman makes the fatal mistake of thinking a man sleeping with her means that he has feelings for her. It's the ancient version of, we're a thing now, right? Wrong. We're always wrong. You see, this man Aeneas wants adventure, heroism and mystery, and a woman in Carthage doesn't offer that to him. Additionally, rumours began spreading like wildfire thanks to Fame, who made sure the passions of Dido and Aeneas did not go unnoticed or undiscussed. The public began to become concerned. Their leader was madly in love and no longer a reliable source for them, and those who had once pursued Dido became enraged with jealousy. One of those men was Ammon, the son of Jupiter. He had once upon a time been rejected by Dido, who claimed that she could never love anyone again after the death of her husband. Yet here she was, allegedly, sleeping around with a Trojan soldier, a refugee, in a cave, and he was furious about it. So he prayed to his father, Jupiter, and begged him not to allow Aeneas and his, quote, effeminate followers to take the city that should be his kingdom had he married Dido. Jupiter naturally agreed and sent down Mercury once again to Aeneas to remind him of his destiny. I mean, why settle for a city that was founded by a woman when you could lay the foundations of your own future city for your son and his descendants? So this is where it gets awkward. Aeneas knows that he needs to break off the engagement with Dido. But again, like many men, he didn't really know how to bring it up. You know, it's like awkward dating scene. Just because I slept with you doesn't mean we're a thing. So he awkwardly sat on his decision for a while she secretly fawned over him, thought they were in love, thought they were engaged, whilst behind the scenes he started preparing for departure by asking the men to prepare the ships for him. Now, he swears he had every intention of telling her, honest to God, but unfortunately she found out about the ships first because Fame spread rumours. Bloody typical. So she had to be the mature one to raise up the issue with him and confront him about it. Naturally, she begs him to stay and reconsider. But Aeneas reminds her, quite bluntly, that she only assumed they were engaged. He never said anything. He never proposed to her. He just slept with her. And while she was, lovely, she spent lots of money on him. She gave him a safe space when no one else would because he's a bloody pauper and a war refugee. Everyone dismissed him, saw no future in him. She's the only one who gave him any hospitality. She was the only one who actually gave him any time of day. She saw him as a human where other people didn't. That stuff was fun. But he had stuff to do in Italy. Now, to make this scene even more masculine, Aeneas breaks this news to Dido whilst standing behind his son, Ascanius. Talk about being a real man confronting your issues head on here. So he buggers off and leaves her to break down inside. So Dido stands on the high roof and watches Aeneas repair his newly refurbished fleet, all thanks to her money and her resources, prepared to sail off into the distance. And she turns to her sister, Anna, who had been Aeneas's confidant until this point, and she asks her to ask him for one favour. She asks Aeneas if he could just please not leave all at once, wait for a favouring wind and give her a little more time to grieve, then leave effectively straight after telling her that he wasn't ever going to marry her anyway and her heart was devastated. So Anna asks Aeneas to do this wonderful favour, and does he give her this grace? Does he hell? Apparently, fate forced him to bugger off straight away, and it was fate that made him completely unmoved by all entreaties. It was the gods who made him an uncaring arsehole, not him. So the second Aeneas denies her this one favour, Dido begins noticing horrifying things happening around her. She sees the holy water turn black, the wine turn into blood, and she heard the voice of her dead husband, Sychaeus, calling to her. She was haunted by nightmares in which she saw herself as prey of unending solitude and desertion, walking alone forever down in this endless road, all through this deserted, empty landscape. And devastated and horrified and overwhelmed with the grief of her fate that awaited her, Dido made up an escape plan of her own. She lied. She told a story to her sister about a priestess and this enchantress who told her that she could heal all her heartbreak. She could stop the flow of rivers, send the stars to fly backwards, conjure up ghosts and all these other incredible magical things. All she had to do was do a ritual. And for this ritual, Dido instructed Anna to build a funeral pyre and lay on it Aeneas's arms, along with any relics that he left behind, as well as the bed that they had lain in together. Because yes, they had sex multiple times. They were sharing a bed by this point. They were a thing, though not to Aeneas. All of this to forget, quote, the vile man. And Anna, wanting to be a girl's girl, did everything for her poor sister. She does as she asks. She builds this funeral pyre, throws on Aeneas's belongings, and then is traumatised as she watches her sister throw herself upon the burning pyre and onto Aeneas's sword, which pierces through her, and kills herself the moment Aeneas's ships sail off for Italy. Dido's death is horrific. She bleeds out onto her lover's sword as the fire engulfs her, and it's a slow and painful death. Her agony is gruesome as she watches herself bleed out and burn to death, as she's also watching her lover sail away without a flicker of feeling for her. Now this is where Juno takes pity on her and sends down Iris to end her suffering by taking her soul from her body quickly, because Proserpine hadn't cut the branch yet. She hadn't been able to react and end her life sooner. Aeneas meets Dido again later in the poem during his catabasis in the Underworld. She was amongst the souls who death itself could not cure her of love's disease. And he has the nerve to try and talk to her and tell her that it was the gods who made him leave, the gods who turned his heart to stone, and the gods who made him not give a damn about her. But she ignores him. This time, as he begs her to stay, she is the one who walks away from him and towards Sychaeus, her husband, who always gave her equal love. The fate of Dido's sister is equally as upsetting as it is satisfying. When Dido died, Iarbas, that king of Libya that I told you about at the beginning of the video, Iarbas the Moor invaded Carthage and captured the palace. Anna, not wanting to become a slave and raped, fled yet again and sought refuge in the island of Melite, called Malta today, where King Battus accepted her. However, King Battus feared Anna's brother, King Pygmalion, and the threat of war which came with hosting his sister, so after 3 years, Anna was exiled and she had to seek a new home once again. Unfortunately, the ship she was sailing on got caught in a storm, and it cruelly, in an ironic twist of fate, landed on Latium's beaches, where Aeneas, who was now married to Lavinia, extended hospitality to her. Anna had no other option but to accept it, though, as you can imagine, the man who her sister died for and the man who abandoned her sister and made her whole home collapse under it, she's not exactly happy to be in his presence. Additionally, to make things worse, Lavinia, Aeneas' wife, wasn't happy about Anna being there, and the absolute bitch sets traps for her. So that night, the ghost of Dido comes to Anna with unkempt hair and she's covered in blood, and the ghost begs Anna to leave. She warns her of Lavinia's traps and tells her to flee Aeneas' home then and there. Anna, absolutely terrified, flees the home through a low window, and Aeneas sends his men after her, but Anna keeps running until she reaches the river Numicius. Aeneas' men catch up with her at the riverbank, but there they see a shape rise out from the water, and Anna, the exile, turns to them and says, "I am a nymph of the calm Numicius. In a perennial river I hide, and Anna Perenna is my name." And there they watch as she transforms into a water nymph, and as Perenna, she lives on for all eternity. Now obviously this is just one version of the myth. In a version before Virgil's Aeneid, Dido was actually forced to marry the Libyan king Iarbas. Again, here he is again. According to this version, that is why Dido kills herself. She does not want to be married to Iarbas. So Virgil actually transforms Dido's death to make her more sympathetic. One which, considering the nature and purpose of the poem, is sort of unusual. And this is likely because during the Augustan age, Carthage was no longer a hated enemy of the Roman Empire, who by that time had now rehabilitated it. So he wanted a more sympathetic tale about Dido. But like Achilles, Aeneas is just as weak and pathetic in my opinion. I dislike both of them. But that's the story of Dido. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for those who requested this video. You can always send me any requests. I have a Google form down below. I have a whole spreadsheet of them, so please feel free to send in any video requests you have. As always, thank you so much to my patrons for making this possible, and I will see you soon for another video. And remember, books save lives, so keep reading.